So, hello everyone. I'm going to try to sum up a little bit of the things that you're going to need Excel for the upcoming semesters in your class. So, bear with me. I haven't done this in a long time, recording stuff, and I haven't planned it all out. So I might have to stop from time to time and see how things are going. So Excel looks something like this. You can search it on your start button. Of course, I have Windows 8, so it kind of looks very different than Windows 10. But if you click on it, the first thing that happens, you get a menu like this, which is about what kind of document would you like to open, right? And if you have any old documents that you've used, they'll be there. But if you want a new one, you're over here. You also have a whole bunch of templates that you can use and tutorials and all of that. So that's kind of cool. There are a lot of templates out there that exist. You can even search for new templates. So let's start with a blank workbook. And that's what you would probably do in when you're doing a lab. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and we're going to talk about a little bit about the environment that you're seeing. So you have the tabs right here. You're used to that. So file, home, insert, page layout. I'll go through some of these, not all of them, so it'll be up to you to go a little bit further. Then underneath, you have what's called a ribbon. And the ribbon is in each tab that you had. You have a whole bunch of things that are preset there for you that you can use. So for example, for the fonts, you have all of these little preset icons that you can already use. And it's fun because they're easy and quick access. So for example, if I have this cell and I want to make it yellow, it's really easy to do. So I'm going to undo that. I don't want that yellow. On top of the ribbon, you have right here in between two lines, you have what's called a group. So it's a group. This group here is for alignments. This group here is for fonts. You have a group here for clipboard. And on some of them, you have a little launch button right here that if you click on it, you have the full menu of formatting cells. So it's really fun. You know, it's a little bit easier to get to. Okay, so I'm going to close that. In the environment, what you got to look at for Excel. And by the way, what I want to say is I'm assuming here that you've never touched Excel before in your life. So maybe I'm saying things that are a little trivial to you, but maybe for some of you, it's new stuff. So if it's really trivial for you, you can just put me on ×2 and hear me speaking really, really, really fast. And then slow it down when there's stuff that you don't know about. So here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all of those are columns. So you can select the whole column by clicking on the letter or just one little cell as you go along. On the horizontal, it's called rows, and they're numbered 1 through many. This table is extensible almost as much as you want. I've never reached the end of an Excel sheet and needing to have more. So each cell, what's fun about it is that has a name, and you can refer to each cell with a different name. And you probably guessed it already. This cell that I'm in here right now is F3. Really easy to figure out what the name of each cell is. So later on, when you have an equation and you want to use this cell, you refer to this cell as F3. So it's really easy to access each cell and the content of each cell. Also, what you can do is have a range. And a range is multiple cells together. So you can have a range of cells that are in the same column. You can have a range of cells that are in the same row, as you saw 2 seconds ago, you can have a range of multiple columns and multiple rows. And when you do that, there is also a way to talk about this range. And the way you talk about this range, and I'm going to type it right here, is to say, in this case, I'm starting at E3. So I would type E3. And then I would say, this is E3 through, at the bottom, the other corner, I will say it's going to I14. And the through is the colon. And I would say I14. And this is how I would refer to for this range of cells if I want to talk about these range of cells. So I'm going to erase this because that doesn't make sense to put that there. No, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so yes, what are other things we want to look at just as the environment? We want to look here at the sheets. You see, this is sheet 1. You can have many sheets. You can add. Of course, you can't have something selected while you do that. You can add a sheet and it gets named sheet 2. You can change the name of the sheet. So class 1, or you can have an class 2, for example. I'm just making it up right now. So let's continue just a little bit with formatting and the environment that you're in. So if you take a column and let's say the name is already taken. Oh, class 1. Okay, so yes, I know the name is already taken. So I'm going to put class 2. So if I take a column and I want to make it bigger or smaller, I can move like this. So I'm just going in between the 2 columns and I get this little bar with 2 arrows, and that's going to help us to move and make the cells bigger or smaller. I can do the same thing on the rows and on the columns. So this is all about formatting and changing how things look. Okay, so once we're comfortable with the environment, we're going to start entering data. So let me see what kind of data I can get and enter it in here. So let's bring back this cell to its normal size. So I don't know if you noticed what I did. I'm highlighting the cell. I'm going in between the 2 and I'm going to double click. And as we double click for the height, it went back. For the width, it waits to see what's in it in order to choose. So I'm going to say here, student name. And as you see, the student name is going over the cell. And you might think that it's the words that are in the cell right now, A3, are overlapping into cell B3, but they're not. They just show that way. So I'm going to show you a little trick on how to make it look better. So student name, if I go beside it and I write quiz 1, let's say I was doing your grading on this and I was keeping track of your grades. And then I say quiz 2, and then I say mid-term exam. Okay. So here I'm using my mouse. I'm using my mouse to go from one to the other and write the stuff. But there are different ways of moving. Sometimes with the keyboard, it's easier. So how do I traverse sideways? So I can just go tab and I'm on the next cell. So I can say project 1, and I do tab again, and I'm on the next one. If I press enter, I'm going down along on the list. If I go tab, I'm going right. Also, I have shift tab to go backwards, and of course, shift enter to go back up. So this is how you can use, if you're really good with the keyboard, those are kind of little tricks that you can use the keyboard, or you can simply use your mouse and go to the next one. Sometimes using the keyboard is a lot faster than using the mouse. And you'll see, I'll maybe give you an example. So I'm going to put here final grade. And I press enter, it goes down. So now I'm going to try to fill it in, right? So I'm going to say, okay, so let me start putting in some names and we'll see how it goes. So let's start with, let's say, Alan. And then I press enter and I say, well, I want afterwards to have Marco. And I press enter. That's if I enter one at a time. But let's say for Alan, I want to give him a quiz mark. And let's say he gets 80%, and I press tab. And then for quiz, oh, we have 2 quiz 1s. Oh, well, I made a mistake. So let me correct that. So how do I correct? I click on it, it shows up here, it shows up here. So I can do 2 things. I can click right here and start editing. And you see it changed over here also. Or if I rather, so I can press enter and then it's corrected. But let's say that midterm, let's say I want to correct it here directly. I don't want to go up. I can double click and I have access to change stuff here too. Okay. So for quiz 2, he got 70. For the midterm, he got 66. For the project, he got 90. And the final grade, well, I haven't calculated yet. So we're going to do that when we get to it with a certain equation. Okay. So now what we want to do is come back here and start entering new data. But oops, I just realized that I'd like to have maybe the family name of the student also. So how do I do it? Do I retype everything? No, of course not. So we're going to press on B and we're going to click on it. And we have all these options here where we can insert. And I insert and it makes me a whole new column in the place where the column was. So I just made more space. And now I have name. Okay. And then I can say Alan. And I'm lacking a little bit of imagination for the names. So give me a few minutes and I'm going to populate this table with a whole bunch of fake data. And then we can start looking at interesting stuff. Okay, so I came up with some family names, weird, but it doesn't matter. So I put them in here and I was just typing them up. And some of them I copied from the internet and some I didn't, so they all look different. So let's take the opportunity to look at how to format a little bit your stuff. So you have, so what I've done is I've highlighted all the names that I took. And a few things you can notice is here in the corner, well, not in the corner, at the bottom, you see count 15. So already you have some clues as to what you have. Sometimes if these are numbers, you'll get the count, but you'll also get the sum. So little things that you can see. So I can put them all bold. I can take them, I can take away the bold, the same as in Word, right? I can change the font. I can make them all the same font because the same size because they weren't. Okay, so now what I can do is I can click, I can copy, I can come back to my other sheet. I can put them here and paste. And here I have a few options to paste. I can paste just normally. I can paste just the values. I can paste just the functions. I can even paste them transposed. So that's really cool. I can paste with the formatting, with the destination formatting, or paste the link. So I just want to paste the values. You're going to see pasting the values is very interesting. When you copy, when you have formulas, you copy and you paste just the values, you're keeping just the values and no more the formulas. Okay, so now I have student names and family names, and I have a whole bunch of data. So give me a few minutes and I'm gonna, well, it'll be a flash for you, and I'm gonna fill that up with fake numbers and we can continue. Change my mind. I'm gonna do something different because I'm gonna teach you how to do this right away. So instead of just me filling in numbers, I'm going to go with a random function. So one of the things that's interesting is that you can enter a function. So what you want to think of is I want this cell to be equal to something. So I have to put the equal sign. And then I have right here an fx, so it's a function. And I have here a whole bunch of things that inside Excel, there's a lot of functions pre-programmed for you. So I can say random. I'm looking for a random number generator. And I'm going to say, okay. And look, I have random. So I click on rand and I see returns a random number greater than or equal to 0 and less than 1, evenly distributed, and changes every time you recalculate. Very interesting. That's probably what I'm going to use, but I just want to see this one. Returns a random number between the numbers you specify. Oh, so let's try both. So I have rand, I press OK, and then I get a number. That's kind of funny because it's under 1. So I would have to, let's say, multiply by 100 to get a number out of 100. But also, if I multiply this by 100, so let's do it. So I'm going to double click on it. And I'm going to simply say multiply by 100. So now all of a sudden, yes, so it recalculated, right? So every time I'm going to put something else in here, it will recalculate the number. Do I really want somebody to get 9%? So I'd like to try the other one. I'm going to double click. I'm going to put here. I'm going to go with random again. Research everything that's random. And I want to try random between. So I'm going to say, okay. And it's going to ask me between, well, let's say I want everybody to pass 60 and 100. Oh, I get a number 89. Okay, cool. I like that, right? So let me erase what's here. So here you have two things. If you want to erase just one, the first one, you press backspace, or you can press delete and delete all of them. As you see, as I press delete, that 89 got recalculated into something else. We don't want things to change every time. So I'll show you how to do it with the copy and paste, the special copy and paste. So here, what I want to do, I want to teach you how to fill in a lot of data. So one thing you can do is drag and fill in. So you see how my cursor changes. So here I have a big fat plus, right? When I click on it. Then I have a really itty bitty kind of plus that's more arrows. So that actually allows me to move the cells around to where I want. So let's say I'm going to move it again. I'm going to move it right at the top. I'm going to overwrite the other one. There's already data there. Do you want to replace it? Yes, of course, because that's exactly what I want to do. And if I go in the in the corner at the bottom where there's that green dot, I get a little plus sign that's darker and much smaller, thinner. So if I click on there, I can drag down. So what it does is that it will copy down the equation that I have there. I can also pick it up here and go over there. So I've copied and pasted. Well, no, I haven't copied. I dragged and I filled in my whole data. So I really wanted you to see that. The other thing with fill and drag that is really interesting to know is that if I say 1, 2, 3, you see how it's recalculating every time. If I say 1, 2, 3, and I want to drag this to fill it out, so I can just drag it down and it will calculate for me. It will just fill in based on Excel thinking, oh, she did 1, 2, 3. That means she wants to count. I could have done 1, 3, 5. Sorry, not 4, but 5. And then if I select these 3 and I drag down, I'm going to get a count by 2. So it's really sometimes very powerful. You can do it for a number of weeks, also months, years. So let's say I say January over here. And I'm not sure it's going to do it for just one word. Yeah, look, it does it. So I can fill it in and it goes January, February, March, April. I can do that for dates. I can do that for everything. Now this is really annoying me that those numbers are changing all the time. So let's fix that. So one way to do it is to highlight everything and to copy. So of course you can do it in different ways. You can go to, I think, the edit somewhere and copy, but you can also just press on the right button and copy right there. Okay. And as you're copying, I can paste. So I'm going to paste right over it. So I'm going to overwrite everything. You don't have to. So let's try pasting beside it. So again, I can paste the equation, just paste everything in there, or I can paste just the values. So the values aren't going to change anymore. So let's try that. I'm going to paste just a value and see the values are not the same as they were, but they are still randomized the way they were 2 minutes ago. So here, if I enter a new number, you see the one that I copied and I pasted only the values, then every time it changes, something changes on the sheet, it doesn't change anymore, but it does keep on changing where I left the equation. So let's put that information. So I also, instead of doing right button copy, I did Control C. So there are a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts that are good to learn. So copy is Control C and paste is Control V. So if I do Control V right now, it didn't give me a choice on how I wanted to print, but it gives me right here at the bottom the option of going to say, well, do I want it the way it was? Do I want just the formulas? Do I want to transpose, right? So it gives me all those options. Since it was just data this time, I don't need to do anything. So I'm going to delete this and we have data. So now that we've entered data, let's look a little bit at the formatting and how we can do this. Okay, so you see how some of the words that I entered, so this is the midterm grade or midterm exam, I don't even know, so let me click on it. It's the midterm exam and I can't see it. So there's 2 solutions that you can do for this. You can, as you saw before, change the size of the cell. So I can go here and I can change the size to see the student name. You can also select multiple columns and you do the same thing. You double click, and when you double click, what it will do is it will make each cell the proper size to fit everything in it. I can also grab it with everything selected and say, well, I want them all to be this size. And then I get a big graph. So it's really up to you how you want to have it looked. I usually like, double clicking and making everything look the same. But I kind of don't like this one because it's still just one grade and it's taking so much space because of the midterm exam, because of the title. So there's something else you can do. You can go on these, or you can go on all of it. But I'm going to select just this row, and I'm going to say, I want this row specific to wrap around. That's what it's called. So I want these cells to allow the data that's in it to be on two separate lines. Not two separate squares, but two separate lines. So how will I do that? Actually, it's right here. But if it's not there, you would open up and you would find in alignment, wrap text. Okay. And you have a whole bunch of things. Here, I can even make my text go upwards. Let's look what will. Wow, that doesn't look very good, huh? As I said, I'm making this up. Oh, here. I'm making this up as I go along. So some of the things will look weird when I try them. So maybe you want them like this, right? You can have them sideways. You can have a whole bunch of alignment. So I don't really like that. I want the normal alignment right here. And I'm going to say, okay. And right now they're still okay because we had made them large. But let's say I want these columns here to be the same size, about like this, right? Or maybe a little bit bigger, like that. And then, well, I'm wrapping text, so this line should in fact be higher because it has two lines. So how do we see that? Again, we bring between the two rows, and we double click, and all of a sudden we have both lines. You could have also just picked it up and make it as big as you want if you want them this big. Double click. Okay, now, if we want to make the cells look nice as a real table and we want lines in them, for example, we can highlight the whole thing and we can go here on the borders and we can make all sorts of borders that we want. We can put the bottom border, top border, all around borders. We can then select the top one and say, well, I want this border to be much thicker. So here you go. And that looks like a beautiful little table with everything in it. So let's look at just a few other things. So let's say I want to give this kind of a title at the top. So I'm going to put it over here and I'm going to say networking class of 2022. Let's see, I'm making this up. Well, it's going over a few cells. It's not in the center. It's not exactly what I want. Okay, so let me do this. Let me select the whole thing over here. And I can, if I want, merge cells together. So I'm going to click over here. I can merge and center. I can merge the cells. So I'm going to merge the cells. And then what you can do is you can decide on the alignment. Okay, I want, so here right now, it's bottom aligned, right? So if I make it bigger, it's bottom aligned. Maybe I want it top aligned or center aligned. And if I want it left, or if I want it right aligned, or if I want it in the center. So it's all little things that you can do. You can make it bold, you can make it underlined, you can do whatever you want with it. So let's continue with formatting. So I can select a whole bunch of cells and I can say, by clicking on the right button, I can say format cells. And I get another window that will show me a whole bunch of things that I can do formatting on it, right? So I can say this is a number. So it will give me the option of putting 1 or 2 digits afterwards. This is currency. So I'm going to put a $sign in front of it. For counting, I have the date. If I had dates, I could format in the way that I want the date to look like. No, this is time. So you have all of these, and you can make even a percentage, a fraction, a scientific, text, special, custom. You can do all of these things with it. So I'm going to leave it at general right now. You can change the alignment. You can change the font. You can change the border directly from here. You can change the fill. Oh, so I want these blue. Well, I don't want right now them in blue. Or you can lock them if you want. So I'm going to cancel because I don't want any of those. But what I do want to show you is how to do some conditional formatting. So maybe you will need this. Maybe you'll need it later. Maybe you'll need it for personal use. I like to use this from time to time. So if I highlight all of them, and I'm going to say, I want conditional formatting here. I have a whole bunch of formatting that is already pre-done for me. So I have greater than. If I wanted to know which grades are greater than 90, I could set a certain color. I can have color scales. So if I want to know which ones are good grades, which ones are bad grades, just from a look, I can put here either green being at the top, so the highest grade, and the red being at the bottom, the lowest grade. I can even do the opposite. So let's put it over here. And I get color coding telling me what's going on. Okay, so I think that's about it for formatting. We're going to start with more equations and more stuff in a second. Okay, so let's say that all of a sudden I want my project here, my project 1, to be before the midterm exam. You can also do that. So if I want to take project 1 and I want to place it before midterm, well, you might think that you want to just drag it up on front. What it's going to do is going to overwrite the data and erase it from it. So that's not what we want to do, Control Z. What we want to do is copy it. So I clicked on the right button, copy, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say paste. But I don't want paste because that's going to just erase what's there. I want to insert the copied cell. So I'm going to insert, and when I insert, it's asking me, do you want the cells that are there where you're pasting to be shoved to the left or to the bottom, right? Sorry, to the right or to the bottom? I actually want them to the right, and it clicks OK. It didn't erase what was there before. It just inserted project 1 before midterm exam. So then I'm going to come and I'm going to erase. So I'm going to delete these cells. And it's going to ask me again, what do you want to do? Do you want to shift the cells that are beside to fill in the gap where I'm deleting? So I'm going to shift them left, or I want to shift the cells that are underneath up. So all of these things could, depending on what you want to do, but this time I want to shift them left. So I press OK, and they just disappear. So now we're going to do, let's say, sum of all the grades, right? So sum of all the grades, and I just want to show you that because it's the easier one to start with. There's a few ways of doing it. So the easiest way is over here you have, so you click on it, and over here you have what looks like a sum. And it's actually a smart sum. It knows. It guesses where you want to sum up, depending on where you are. So let's click on it and look. It goes and picks up everything we want. So sum C4 to F4. C4 over here to F4, it fills it in correctly. So we're going to press enter. And we got 333. That's a big number, but that's by 4, right? So if we wanted to do the average, let's say all of the quiz and the final exam and the project were all the same value, then we can just divide by 4. So simple math is easy. You just go equals, and then you go with your mouse, this square, divided by 4, and you press enter. Oops, sorry. I have a French keyboard going on right now. Okay, so let's start that again. So when I want to overwrite a cell, I can go on it, and I'm not in the cell, I'm on top of the cell. And if I start writing stuff, it will erase what's there and put new stuff in. So equal the next, the square that, the cell that I wanted, divided by 4, and I have my average. So this student has an average of 83.25 if all the evaluations were actually equally weighed. So that's one of the things you can do. And you remember we dragged to fill. We can do the same thing here. Again, in 2 different ways. Excel has many ways of doing the same thing with small variations. So if I want to drag this equation, I can first copy it and paste it all the way down. That's one way of doing it. Let me do Control Z. I can click on it. I can go to the drag button on the bottom and just drag it down. Same thing. And so that's the 2 ways. I'm sure there was a third way that, so one of the things you want to look at when you're here. Okay, so if you click on it, you're going to see the equation, right? Now, what's nice to notice is as you go down, the equation changes. It's still sum, but it adjusted C5 to F5. And you go down again, and you say this is C6 to F6 because we're on this row. So as you drag, it's smart enough to know that the equation applies to the rest. Well, that could cause us some problems. And it could, so let's try to figure out something. Okay, so here what I did is I said G4 divided by 4. Maybe I'm going to add data. So I'm going to just do insert right here where I'm inserting a whole column. And I'm going to put a new value here, 43. You got a really bad grade, right? And all of a sudden, the average went up. That kind of doesn't make sense. Well, that's because we're still only dividing, we're adding 5, but we're dividing by 4. So let's kind of fix that. So here I'm dividing by a constant. So let's say I erase this constant, and I'm going to divide by this square over here, which right now is 0. So it's going to give me an error, right? Because divided by 0, you can't do that. But I'm going to place in here a number, which is 5, because right now I have 5 evaluation marks and not 4. So all of a sudden, it's green because I can have, if I add another, so I can say here, number of evaluations, right? And I can change that depending on how many evaluations I'm going to put. So let me drag that down. Wow, that doesn't look right, huh? 3% when you have that many. Let's see what happens. So as I drag down, and look, there's a way that you can say where your equations are. If you just click once, you're seeing the equation over here. But if you click twice, you actually see where the squares are. And all of a sudden, I am dividing my sum by the average of the dude before me. So that's not right. I want it actually to be 5 that I want to divide by. Okay, so there's a way to fix this. I'm going to press escape to get out of that square, and I'm going to come back here. So Excel is very smart, but not smart enough to know that as I'm dragging down, I don't want the cell here that I'm dividing by to move. As I'm dragging down, it's going to assume that I want to continue moving. So it's going to update. So there's a way of doing that. So when you click on it, if you want to block that number so it doesn't change, you have to come and add a $sign. So if you want to block I, you're putting a $sign before I. If you want to block 3, you put a $sign. So it's any mismatch of both. You don't have to block both, but in this case, I'm going to block both. So you press enter. I'm going to click again here, and I'm going to drag the new equation. There's another way of dragging. I just remembered. When you have a table like this, you can click over here and drag like we've done. But you can also double click, and the double click is smart enough to go all the way down and add numbers and do the copy of the equation all the way to the bottom. So now the average is really low because we're missing an evaluation for everybody. So let me just go like this, and let's say that everybody got 43%. I'm just bringing the average of the class down. Maybe I was not feeling too good that day, and I gave everybody a man mark. No, that doesn't happen. Okay, so we've covered a whole bunch of things, but the most important is yet to come for next semester's classes. So another thing I want to show you is how to sort your data. And this one is a little finicky at times. So I'm going to highlight all my student names and the equations. And as you see, I took the title of the column with it. And I could just do a sort. Sometimes it really messes up the data. Let's see what it does. Sort A to Z. See, it put my title at the bottom. It's really awful. So I'm going to do Control Z. I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to click on the little arrow back, and I'm going to put a custom sort. In the custom sort, I actually tell Excel, I have headers. I have a title, so don't sort that. Otherwise, you're going to mess my whole thing up. And maybe I want to sort student name. Maybe. Or maybe I want to sort through the sum, or 5 in this case was actually the count of exams. But let's say I want to sort through sums, and I want smallest to largest, right? So I want to see how my students did in order from the smallest to the largest, or I can do it from largest to smallest. Let's go largest to smallest, and I press OK. So I see Jerry Chan. All these names are made up, by the way. Got the highest grade, and the lowest grade is Amanda Boulay. Okay. Again, all made up. So you have here how to do sorts, and you can sort 2 of them 2 different ways. You can add and sort different ways. So it's really fun. If you have a lot of data and you want to sort it in a certain way, it's really fun to do. And again, don't forget that if ever you say, well, I have a new student that came in, yes, you can add them at the end, but if you want to add them in the middle, you can just insert a column and fill in the data. Usually the equations follow, but in this case, I see they don't. So you just drag it down and you make the equation. Whoop, no, don't copy it that way. So I'm going to do Control Z. I'm going to copy it down, and I have my equation the way they were. Okay. Just double click to see if my equation is in the right place. So now we're going to want to do graphs, because that's one of the things that you really need to do for next semester. But I don't want to take this as an example because this doesn't reflect at all what you'll be doing next semester. So I'm going to pause the recording for a second, and I'm going to go get data that that's similar to one of the labs that you have. And we're going to plot that, and I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to try to put the Word document in there, on Leia, so you can copy and paste the data as I'm doing. Okay, so back in a few moments. So I created a new sheet, and I'm going to go get some data that is over here. So usually maybe you'll get some of it, maybe you won't. I filled it in with some data. So usually what you would get this not there. And as you're doing your lab, as you're doing your experiment, you would be filling this in. Okay. Once you fill it in, you can fill it in Word if you want, because that's where you're going to get the original table. And I'm just taking this table just as an example. But you can take, so you can take this table, put it directly in Excel and fill it up in Excel, or you can fill it in Word and then bring it in to Excel. That will be up to you. There's advantages and disadvantages to both, but I'll let you play with it and you'll see. So I'm going to copy, Control C. So I've highlighted everything. I'm doing Control C. I'm going to go back to my Excel. And I have a clean sheet, not class 2 that I had before, but a clean sheet over here. And I'm going to paste. So you see everything shows up there. So this column might not be there, but it's hugely important that if it's not there, you create it. And I'll explain in a little bit why you need to do that. But first, let's do some equations and see how it works. So current is basically VG, right? Divided by R of the total circuit that you have. VG being the voltage of the source, voltage of the generator. So let's say that my resistor was 997 ohms, right? I'm just going to put a number there. And I want the current. So what am I going to do? V is equal to IR. So if I want I have to do V divided by R being right here, and V being in volts. So I'm going to do the equal sign. I'm going to take the first square. I'm going to say divide. I'm going to take the second square, and I'm going to press enter. But remember that I want this to be, I want it to be always this square that I'm going to divide with. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to put dollar signs right here, dollar sign over here and dollar sign over here. I'm going to press enter. So it's always going to go divide by this resistance. So I take it down, I bring it all the way down, and I have my numbers. So my current in this case is always the same. So I'm looking back at my stuff and I realized I made a mistake. IG right now, we're calculating with VR divided by R. So this is R. So I'm going to have to change my equation. So it's not D4 that I have to take, it's F4. So I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to simply come and replace my D with an F. I'm going to press enter. Okay. And I'm going to double click for all the calculation to get done all the way to the bottom. Okay. So now I have that there. I can start my graph. And there's a few ways you can do the graph, but I will show you the simplest way that I found and an easy way to do it. Okay. By the way, maybe this is not the format that you would put it in to bring it back into the Word document for your report. But for the calculations, it is very important that you do not put any units. So for example, here I have 10 hertz and I have 10 over here. Why did I do that? It's because when you get a graph and you really want a graph that is, let's say, current versus the frequency that you're at, if you have any letters in here, Excel is not smart enough to figure out this engineering notation and kilohertz and all of that. So it will mess up your graph. So what you want is you want to put it in number, right? So it's 10 hertz all the way to 300 kilohertz, so 300,000 hertz. And you don't want to put any values beside it. You want to have the same unit all the way through and no units written down. Okay. So the best way I found this is to copy the data out of the table and to have the two data sets that you want to plot one beside the other one. There's many ways of doing things, so maybe you find a better way. All the best. So right now we want to plot, give me a second. So I want to plot IG. I want to see the current, how it is, what is its function with respect to the frequency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab all my data here. I'm going to press on Control to add more data that I want to look at. So my current, I'm going to release everything. I'm going to copy, so I can say Control C. Won't work on multiple selections. Okay, so I must have done a weird selection. So I'm going to do it again, all the way to here, Control, from AG, all the way down, Control C. So I must have moved and I must have selected a cell twice. And I go right beside somewhere and I'm going to do Control V. And all of a sudden we see that whatever we copied, even though they were far apart, they got put in together and it's one beside the other one. So now we can plot this. So, oh, and I selected the wrong thing. So I'm going to do Z. I wanted the frequency, right? I wanted the frequency, not VG. Control IG, Control C. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Okay, Control and IG, Control C. So, oh, very interesting. So this cell is much bigger than this cell. So it kind of considers it a multi-cell. It's because this one is a merged cell. So if I want to keep it, I have to unmerge it, or I simply don't select it. So I'm just going to take the numbers then. And I will not take the title of it. So I'm going to paste course, just because it's getting late at night, I'm making a whole bunch of mistakes. So Control C, I come over here, Control V. I can say this is the frequency, and this is current. Okay, and I'm gonna do a graph. So I'm gonna select my data. And then I'm going to say insert. And I'm going to take this graph over here, this chart that is a scatter, it's called. And I can hover my mouse around the different ones, and I can see what kind of graph I'm going to get. So I'm going to select this one, points and a line through it. So it looks like this. So it said it already labeled some of the stuff for me. It's not exactly what I want as a label. So I'm going to go and I'm going to change those things. And that's the things that I want to show you. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. I can make the graph a little bit bigger if I want, whatever. And I can click in it. I can double click in it and say current, and I can change current versus frequency. And then I can click out of it and I can go modify chart styles. So it gives me different things I can do with it. I can look at it differently. I can even change the color of it, to wherever I want. But right now it's not giving me everything I want, possibly because I'm clicking on it. So, that's not what I want to do. Let me take the whole graph. Okay. So as I click on the plus, I can add things. So I can add my titles to my axes, and they just go as axis titles. So you go change them, right? So you click over here, you select the whole thing, you delete what's there, and then this is current. And you come over here, and this is frequency. And so on and so forth. And then you want to change a little bit more. And sometimes it will show up here, sometimes it won't. So we're going to right click on it, and we're going to say format chart area. And this is where we're going to get all the information that we need. Okay, so here we have all of these things that we can change. We can change the horizontal values, and we can put what information. We can change if we want a shadow, if we want a glow. That's all in the formatting. And then we can actually even go in the axis option. And this is one of the things that I want to show you, because I know you'll have to do it, is you will have to do logarithmic. So here, I'm going to see the logarithmic scale just got put for the frequency. So that's actually what I wanted to do. Sometimes if you've selected the wrong axis and you do the change, it will put the current in logarithmic form, but that's not what we want. It's usually the frequency that we want to put in logarithmic form. Okay. And you can also change the major and minor grid lines. So here you have some grid lines. You can add some solid line if you want, or gradient line, depending on what you need and what you think looks better. You can have here shadows, and you can change a whole bunch of things about your graph. So once you've done that, you can close it, and you can take a look at your chart. If it's what you like, you can make it fancy, you can have shadows, you can do whatever you want with it. The important thing is to be able to read the data properly. So if you wanted to make it a little bit bigger, you can make it a little bit bigger. right? And then what you can do is once you click on it twice, you can say Control C, so you're copying it, or you right click and you say copy, and you can go back to your Word document. And you can say, well, in your report, you're going to click, you're going to bring it down, and you're going to say Control V, and it's going to put the image right there. Okay, it's a beautiful image and all of that. You make sure that you haven't made any spelling mistakes. And in Word, what you want to do is you want to add a caption. So you have here, and it should be insert caption. So in the insert caption, it's the first figure that I add, so figure 1, and then I can say current versus frequency graph. Okay, maybe you don't need to put graph, but whatever. And you say okay, and it gets put right there, so you're ready to do your lab report. Okay, so hope this helps, and I'll put the homework in Leia in a few minutes. Bye.